So this is a brief story about my application to a top 10 professional services firm and why I rejected the offer that was made almost immediately after I had gone through all the assessments. So anyway, I applied to two of the big professional services firms, the top 10, right? One was Grant Thornton and the other one was Mazars. Now, prior to this, I want to give you a bit of a background. Right, so I graduated with a degree in accounting with finance from Birkbeck University of London in 2021. At that time, how old was I? 32. So I wasn't your average applicant when it comes to these graduate schemes. When I applied in 2022, to Grant Thornton and Mazars. Obviously, I was 33 now. As well as, me not being a 21-year-old fresh out of uni, I had also already started building a career in the finance sector within industry. By this point, I think I was in my third ever position in accounting. This was like 2 and a bit years, right? And not consecutive years, because I had 1 year, was in a small quantity surveyor's office in central London somewhere. And that was while I was at uni. That was in my first year of uni. And I can do another video on that. In fact, I've been meaning to do a video on how I landed that job. And, it was paying me £1,000 per week, that job. And that was through a friend of a friend. I was really grateful to have landed that opportunity and getting paid that much per week while I was in my first/second year of uni. After that, I got my second ever position in my third year of uni, about 4 months maybe before graduating. I thought, let me get in there early before everyone else starts applying after graduating. So I did that. I stayed in that place for like 1 year or 10, 11 months, something like that. And then I stepped up a little bit and I landed my third accounting job. And this was like purely, completely tax. By this time, I was a couple of years into indirect tax, VAT specifically. And I think I had made up my mind that I wanted to stay there because I quite enjoyed it. I didn't find it as difficult as most people would think. So while I was in this position, I decided, because I had something at the back of my mind niggling away at me. And because I know that a lot of people, they go to uni first, that's a traditional path, right? Then they would go into a graduate scheme, stay there for 3 or 4 years, get qualified, and their qualification will be paid for by this accountancy practice. And then they would either, if they like being there, they would stay there, which is very rare. Like it's few and far between people that would stay there. But then the majority of people would actually move out and then go and work in industry somewhere. So I had that niggling away at me. It's like, I wonder what it would be like to go through that traditional pathway. And I thought, you know what, even though I've got 2 and a bit years of experience in industry, I think it would be really nice from a knowledge standpoint, because I felt like there was a lot of gaps in my knowledge, even though I was a really quick learner and I had got to this place in my career that I had never dreamed of being in just a year out of uni. So I'd done really well for myself, but I still always wondered, like, what if I could join a practice? What if I could work in a practice and get qualified in there and be around all these talented, experienced professionals that could teach me a lot, right? Because a lot of the time in my work, in industry, we basically, when we need advice or when we get stuck on something or when we have problems with a lot of things within tax, we would seek the help of these professionals that work in these accountancy practices, and they would basically issue us advice depending on the scenario, and then we would then take that on board, implement that in our business. And I really envied how they worked whenever we went to reach out for them for advice, and how professional they were and how knowledgeable they were. And I just really admired that, and I wanted to be part of something like that. I wanted to be one of those professionals that these businesses came to for advice. Like I really wanted to be on that side of things. So then I know I'll keep rambling on, so let me just stick to the point. So those are the reasons why I applied. Grant Thornton, I didn't get very far. I think I got through stage 1, application stage, obviously, and then stage 2 was like online test or something, and I didn't get through that. Mazars, I really like breezed through it. There's an application stage, obviously initial application stage. Then there was some assessments. I think one was numerical, one was a literacy test, and another one was maybe an aptitude test. I will make a separate video where I'll look over my emails and everything just to remind myself about what the process actually was. And then I'll go through all that in detail. So there was that, so I passed that. And then there was an assessment center. Now, usually, obviously, assessment center days are like in person where you go somewhere, maybe to a hotel or something, and they book out like a whole floor or whatever, and then you go and do the assessment center in person. But this was, I think, 2022, which was like the couple of years after COVID first hit. So they had begun doing assessment centers on Zoom, like online. So my entire assessment center was online, and it was like 5 or 6 hours from morning to like afternoon. And it was split up in sections, and then between each section, I think you got like a 15-minute break or something, or after 2 sessions and you got a 15-minute break or half, and then there was a lunch as well, I remember. Anyway, at the end of that, then it was time to wait, right? But I didn't really have to wait that long, because within 1 hour of the end of my assessment center day, I got a call from the director of tax, who was basically one of the people that were interviewing me, because one of the sections of the assessment center is a 1-to-1 interview and a presentation. So you basically present to this person who would be like your direct, line manager, or like person within your team, or the head of the department that you're interviewing for. And I went for a personal tax role. And so I had interviewed with him already. I had already presented to him. He called me to tell me straight away that, they were really pleased with me and my assessment, and he made me an offer there and then. And I was absolutely chuffed, like over the moon. And then obviously he said to me, wait for the paperwork to come through. We'll send you an official offer by email, and the recruitment team's going to be in touch with you, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, fine. So at this stage, what I'm thinking is that, firstly, right, I have a job, which I love. Secondly, I was working in indirect tax, which is mostly VAT and like cross-border indirect taxation. But this role that I had applied for at Mazars was personal tax, which I didn't mind because they didn't have any roles in indirect taxation. So, and what I also knew from the company and from the interview is that if you don't like what you're doing, it's really easy to navigate your way through to a different department or a different specialism if that's what you want. And that's what, when I interviewed with that tax director, that's what he had said to me, because that was one of his concerns. He knew I was working in indirect taxation, and he wondered why I applied for this role, which is obviously in personal tax. And then in the same conversation, in that one-to-one interview, he did also say that, we've had people that, that didn't like the specific area that they were in, and then they would ask to be transferred somewhere else. And it's an easy transition into somewhere else if you wanted to. I guess that was him trying to sell themselves to me, but then at the same time he also wanted to know why I applied for personal taxation, which I don't know what reason I came up with, but I was just like, I think I just lied. Anyway, yeah, so that was one of the issues, is the personal taxation. I wasn't really sure about it, but I'm the kind of person that says yes first, and then if I get my foot in the door, if I get an offer, or it's time to make that handshake, that's when I make my decision. So number 1 is I'm already in a job that I like. Number 2 is the specialism, the area that I applied for. Number 3 was the location of the job. So I live in London, always lived in London. This position was in their offices in Leeds, which is further up north in England. And I would have had to move to be able to do this job. And actually, that was another one of his concerns. It's like, are you willing to relocate? And I never told him that I have kids or anything. I'm just like, yeah, I'm willing to, yeah, I'm going to relocate. I've always, in fact, I was thinking of moving to Leeds when ago. And so that's just me kind of trying to ace the interview and pass the interview and just eliminate those concerns on his end. And then my fourth concern was the package. I wasn't sure because a lot of these firms, when they advertise these graduate schemes, they don't actually put down like what is like what the pay is like, what the pay package is like, and everything else. So I was really concerned and worried because obviously I know that I'm already established in industry, working in tax, which I know already pays better than other types of accounting roles. And so I was just kind of worried. I was like, I have 3 children, I need to relocate, and I'm already getting paid a certain amount. Is this job going to be able to negate these concerns that I have? So the offer comes through, I think, like the next day or 2 days later or something. And then I see a contract as well come through with the salary in it listed. And I think the relocation wouldn't have been a problem. The changing the specialism wouldn't have been a problem. But the thing that broke it for me was the pay. So I was, at that time, I was making £35,000, and I was assistant tax accountant in that role. And this role then, the contract for it comes through, and I think it was 21,000. So that would have been a 14 grand pay cut. And if I was fresh out of uni, 21 years old, no responsibilities, no attachment to anything, I would have said yes in a heartbeat, signed that contract, sent it over, and packing my bags the next day. But it's just not as easy when you're a mature candidate and you already have responsibilities, you already have a life, that you've established, and you have roots that you've set, and you have children, and just so much more. And I was really gutted, and I had to just turn the offer down. And at first I did try to negotiate. I reached out to a friend of mine that I used to work with, that basically his career started out in one of these accountancy firms and he got qualified in one of these places. And I said to him, look, how easy or difficult is it to negotiate your pay on a graduate scheme? Like, especially, they really liked me. They called me and gave me an offer within an hour of the assessment day ending. And they told me how good my assessment was, down from my case study to my group session to my test to everything. I aced every single thing. So obviously those things give me an advantage and give me something to bargain with. But unfortunately, in these graduate schemes, they don't see it like that, because they have plenty of people that are fresh out of uni that they can upskill and train the way they want, right? So even though I was very attractive to them, I wasn't attractive enough for them to be able to say yes to a pay negotiation. And so they didn't budge a single bit. There was a little bit back and forth and, conversation about, okay, let us go up the chain and check with this person and whatever. But then they came back and it was just, no, like, we're not going to do it. That's not part of our policy. This is the way we work, and we're not going to change that. And so that was it. I was really gutted. But at the same time, I walked away knowing that I was worthy of working in a well-renowned practice, that they wanted me as somebody that was part of their team. So even though I have accepted the fact that I probably will never work in practice, one, because the pay tends to be really low compared to industry, and two, because I'm not somebody that is new and just starting out in life, right? So I don't need to go there. But at the same time, even though I've accepted that, I really wish I had the opportunity to start out in practice, because I think that's the best start you can give yourself. And if you're someone that is at university, about to graduate, or has graduated in the past few years, I think it's definitely worth it to start out in practice, because the people that I've worked with, which is the majority of them, who have started out life in practice and have got qualified there, I just feel feel like they're in a much better position when they come into industry in terms of just being well-rounded in their knowledge. So I highly encourage you to do that. I will be making another video of the whole assessment day and how it went and giving you tips and tricks. And I think those tips would be really useful to you if you're looking to apply to Mazars or one of these places where they do assessment centers for these graduate schemes. If you want to see another video just like this, and perhaps the assessment center video, if it's already up, then you'd want to click right here.